Welcome back. So I had another live today on TikTok, and we went over a lot of the things that are associated with chirognomy. And chirognomy is the study of the shape and texture of the hand. So there's a lot of stuff that is involved in that. Now I ramble so much, so I did take clips, and so there, kind of like I am speaking choppily here. It's going to be choppy because I split up the video, so it's over an hour long class, but I got about 30 plus minutes. So take notes if you would like. I did cover some things that might be considered a little controversial. And I'm going to add some pictures at the end to clarify, like fingertip shapes and stuff. And I do get into my opinions on the murderous thumb. So venture on if you dare. And I will explain also at the end a little bit more about clubbed fingers and the clubbed thumb. They are different than the murderous thumb, but palmistry is a pseudoscience. So it's not anything that you can get a degree in. And so there are different, I would say different opinions maybe when it comes to that. But if you go and you Google what a murderous thumb is, a lot of times you will see that brachydactyly type D thumb, and as it being associated with the clubbed thumb. But I explain why I don't believe that is the same thing. So because palmistry says it, in my opinion, does not make the brachydactyly type D thumb the clubbed thumb. But what they say about a clubbed thumb, I do believe to be accurate. I just do not believe that the brachydactyly type D thumb is a clubbed thumb. Unless you find that thumb on a hand that has clubbed fingers, well then I just don't believe that it has anything to do with the similarities as a clubbed thumb. Because the fact that it is a short digit, it makes it look like it's clubbed. Simple as that. So, yeah, you'll have to watch and let me know what you think. Okay, so chirognomy is an offshoot of palmistry. Palmistry is effectively the generic term for the study of the hand. Chirognomy is a very distinct discipline in so much that it looks at the shape of the hands, fingers, and fingernails. It also considers the texture of the skin. Although perhaps not overly useful on its own, many palmists will use chirognomy to gain extra insight into an individual when doing a reading. That is absolutely true. I use chirognomy and chiromancy. So chiromancy is where I do look at all the lines in the hand. And just like we just read, chirognomy is the shape, it's the fingers, it's the texture. I would even consider that the hand shape is just one fraction, and in fact it's a small fraction of what your hand says about you, but it is kind of the baseline of your personality. So even though it says they might be considered extroverts, when we get into the lines in your hand, which when we get into chiromancy, if you see, like, between your headline and your lifeline, no gap, that actually shows just the opposite, that you are a little bit introverted. So just remember that we're going to see things that might contradict the fact that you might have a fire hand, an earth hand, or the baseline of your personality. You're going to see things in your hand that might contradict that. But you are potentially the hand shape. So the earth hand, how do you know if you have a long index finger or a short index finger or average? So you're gonna go like this, and you see this digit of the finger next to you, or this line right here. So if your index finger is longer than that line, then you have a at least average to fairly long index finger. So, I mean, long ideally would be almost the same as you'll know. So the first thing that we would look at is the index finger. So the index finger, people with a long index finger are very confident and sure of their own ability. They like to be in charge and will always be chasing promotion with their chosen field. As a whole, they do well at whatever they're doing and can certainly be relied upon to cope with a crisis. The reverse tends to be true if those with a short index finger. They are not so outgoing and tend to be shy and full of self-doubt. Mind you, the middle finger is ruled by Saturn. So it is that box that we put ourselves in when it comes to how we learn, our philosophy, and Saturn can be our own worst enemy. It can be our prison if we don't think outside the box, you know. Okay, so let's see. What does it say about Saturn, the middle finger? People with a short middle finger are very often careless and tend to be somewhat lazy. Those with long middle fingers tend to take life seriously and will work hard as they are very keen to get ahead. Most people are actually somewhat in the middle, as the finger is middle-sized rather than long or short. So again, how would we know if Saturn is long or short? Take a look at your hand. Now, like mine is long compared to the rest of my fingers. I have a long finger, and you don't want to compare your finger to someone else because I have short fingers. You want to compare them to your other fingers. And pay attention to these lines right here because they are kind of like, you know, like when you go to Cedar Point and you say, oh, you're not tall enough to ride this ride. These are the guides. These are what show you. So look at how much longer this finger is compared to these. If it was closer to the same height, and look, there's not a big curve here. So it's just a slight incline when it comes to the curvature of my fingers and where they fit at the top of my palm. So this is significantly longer than my other fingers. It means I have a long Saturn finger. If this was, say, level and closer to the height of these fingers, or then that would mean you have a short or possibly average size. Shorter than, I think it would be significantly noticeable. And yeah, so I mean, do I think that a short finger might necessarily make the person lazy? In a physical aspect, I'm going to say no. I just think that what that really means is that somebody that is just here to not think about the what ifs. They're just, you know, they just do what they want and don't worry about consequences. In other words, they're lazy in the aspect of you might find that they are less inclined to ask why. They might be less inclined to do the work on themselves, that kind of thing. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so let's move on to the ring finger. We all know about the ring finger. That is Apollo. So let's read what it says about Apollo, the ring finger. The ring finger. People with long ring fingers are usually very creative and will do well in any artistic or fashion-related field. Short ring fingers are extremely rare. So, the ring finger, if you're going to, like mine is actually, it's shorter than the others, but it's average. Now, a long one would probably be, I mean, it is longer than Jupiter. So like if I was to draw an imaginary line, so it's I'd say it's not like, it's long, but not as long as, say, these two fingers are compared to the rest of my hand. But it's not short. If it was short, you would see a significant difference. And again, you got to be mindful of this curvature right here. To Mercury. Mercury is the little finger. And Mercury is air, by the way. So Mercury, the little finger, a little finger is usually the hallmark of an intelligent person, someone with a high IQ. They are good communicators and do well in any related field. They also tend to have a very strong libido. Those with a short little finger are usually emotionally immature. So that is definitely something that I have struggled with in the past. Now, because this little finger does dip, it does to come up here and tell you these things, but I battle with it because I do struggle with communication. If I don't have my notes or I'm not very confident in a subject, I will stutter. I will skip words. I think I skip words anyway, but I think ADHD might have something to do with that. But that's also an indication. When you have a short pinky, you might even know that about yourself, that you either are ADD or ADHD, because it has a lot to do with how you communicate and the thought process. Again, Mercury is thought. It's thought. So keep all those things in mind. Let's move on. Session on the thumb, actually, but let's see what this says about the thumb. So the thumb, basically, the more ordinary the thumb, the more ordinary the person. Wow. I don't know if I would say that, but wow, right? So start looking at your thumb here. The top of the thumb indicates willpower and the bottom is logic. Okay, that's correct. And how you know, okay, so this part right here, you're going to look at where your crease is. This is will right here. And this is logic. So my will outweighs my logic. What does that say about me? It means if my will outweighs my logic, it means I can be a little bit impulsive sometimes. So that is very important to look at when you are looking at your thumb. Together they are a good indicator of just how hard someone will push to get what they want. A small thumb indicates a gentle nature, whereas a long thumb indicates a much more forceful personality that is more likely to succeed. So remember, we just talked about whether your thumb is long or short. Now, mine is right in the middle. It's right in the middle. It's not short, but it's not long. And how do I know that? It is longer than right here, which is not much longer, but right here, this little crease, when I do this, it's just a hair longer than it being short. Now, if it was long, it would probably reach right here. So it's not long, it's not quite short, but it's still shorter than it is long. So a long and narrow thumb indicates someone who wants to succeed but doesn't necessarily have the drive to do so. Small, broad thumbs indicate a lack of determination. Broad does mean thicker, okay? Mine is actually, it's almost the same width as the rest of my fingers, so it's an average width. It's not as flexible. You might even see somebody that holds their thumb kind of close to their hand, naturally. What that says about a person is how generous they are with themselves. You know what I mean? To you. So it's like, I am extremely generous with giving myself to other people. You know what I mean? Giving my time, giving my, what I consider helping you know, in service to others. If it was more so, that would show that I was extremely giving or extremely generous. The more rigid it is, shows that you're not as generous. You're not as forthcoming with your... You'll notice that next we're talking about finger shapes. So let's talk about the conic finger type, which most of mine are conic. Conic is like rounded. That's really all conic is. My index finger is a hair pointed. I have seen majorly more pointed fingers, but that one's definitely round. See that you can tell just by looking, comparing your own fingers, that my index finger is a little bit more pointed than my middle finger. And Apollo is fairly rounded. And Mercury is a little bit more pointed, just like my index. And the thumb is rounded. Now again, I can't show you pointed, but it's pointed is more so even than this and this. It's not quite a point, but you can definitely tell. So conic. People with this shape of fingertip are usually very flexible and open to compromise when necessary. As such, they make very good negotiators, and to be happy, they need emotional security. It's important to know that the conic fingertip also is relevant to what finger it is. Fingertip. Pointed fingertips are usually a sign of a somewhat sensitive and fragile personality. Artists, authors, poets, and writers often have this shape of fingertip. Along with that, I will tell you that pointed fingertips are an absolute indication of someone who is extremely psychic, because along with sensitive, you are sensitive to the information that is coming from the universe. So, like for myself, I have probably extremely emphatic or empathy. You know, they would be almost... It would almost be unbearable for somebody with a pointed thumb to be in a crowded room, put it that way, because they would just not be able to sustain that type of energy overflow for very long. You know, again, it's all about sensitivity. Spatulate fingertips. Now, spatulate looks almost like what it sounds like. It's kind of a flatter... You know, like you can see, flatter would be maybe flatter at the top and then wider. So like it would kind of go, not clubbed, because clubbed is also fatter here. But spatulate does mean that like the ends of the fingers are a little bit flatter and more, they're bigger than the rest of the finger. I can't really show you pictures with this, but if you look it up, which I would suggest looking it up, you will understand what I mean by a spatulate. It's very similar to clubbed, but clubbed is also fat here on the tip as it is if you look at it at the front. So, spatulate, let's see what it says about that. Those with spatulate-shaped fingertips are the most dynamic of all, both physically and mentally. Inventors and pioneers often have this shape of tip. More of the spatulate. The square fingertip. The people with the square tip are usually slow and methodical with everything they do. The tortoise rather than the hare. They tend to be very rational and be lacking in the field of creativity. Now, square is your earth personality, again, has the square palm. So when you think of that, there, you know, that just kind of adds to that that type of practical. I don't want the details. Let's just get it done. I don't want to hear all the drama that goes with this. Let's just get it done. They're very matter of fact. I'm only speaking upon the things that I have studied myself that correlate what is in this article. So they say most people will have very little hair on their hands. It's much more likely to be found on men rather than women. Hair can be indicative of physical strength, and if hairy, a high sex drive. That I concur, because again, passion, a lot of hair shows passion, and it can also show short temper. So with that being said, physical strength, I can understand why you might see that more on a man, but you could definitely see it on a woman too. Skin texture, we talked about that earlier, is like, you know, the touch of your hand. If it's soft, what my idea of that is like you like soft surroundings, you know, you like to be comfortable. Extra soft means extravagant. Kind of rough means that, you know, you're not as focused on your surroundings as, say, someone that has a soft hand. So now let's see what they say. A soft and delicate texture often indicates a refined and sensitive person. Thick-skinned people are usually stubborn and may well come across as insensitive. That kind of speaks for itself, right? Thin-skinned people are the opposite and are often overly sensitive. A satin-like skin often indicates an artistic nature. And I agree with all of that. Because again, like when we talk about extra fine skin, that's a person that I can see is if they like extravagance, they're very sensitive to their surroundings. So it has to be, an extravagant to them would be what they prefer, and they're going to make sure that they have it. So it, you know, they're going to make sure, because they're sensitive to their environment, they're going to do what it takes to make sure they're comfortable in their environment. Extravagant just means you're willing to spend a little bit more. That is, I told you I was going to talk about the murderous thumb. So in my early days of wanting to share everything that I learned, again, you know, I've been pretty forthcoming with you. The ego is a little bit out there. I did not think before I shared some stuff about the murderous thumb, because palmistry is very clear about the murderous thumb. So for those of you who are not familiar, palmistry says that the murderous thumb is the clubbed thumb. I concur that it's the clubbed thumb. But what happens is it also puts another type of thumb in that category. And this is the part that I struggle with and I don't believe is accurate, is that, let's see if I pronounce this right. It's short BB or BDD, and I will tell you exactly what it is talking about here. Brachydactyly type D. Okay, sorry, something came up on my screen. It's called Brachydactyly type D. And according to Wikipedia, it's also known as short thumb, stub thumb, or clubbed thumb. But if you look up on Wikipedia what causes this, it's a I will read to you what it says. It's a genetic trait clinically recognized by the thumb being relatively short or round with an accompanying wider nail bed. But it is literally because the thumb itself is not like it didn't. It's a short thumb. It's almost like it doesn't have a full bed here. And so even the digit itself underneath there is short. Almost like it was cut off and not quite as long as a average thumb. And it's a genetic disorder. I don't even think it's called a disorder because it's cosmetic, but it is. D is a genetic brachydactyly type D is a skeletal condition which exhibits a partial fusion or premature closing of the epiphysis, which is the distal phalanx of the thumb. So it's up here. And the phalanges of the short thumbs were 1/2 the length of full-length thumbs. And I found like a picture of the x-ray, which I probably can't show you that, but maybe I can. You can kind of see that right there. See, because of the flesh itself, it still is like the size, say, a regular thumb. That flesh is going to protrude and make it look like a clubbed thumb. But the rest of the, I'm not sure what happened here. Anyway. But I wasn't the cause of that turmoil that she had. It's just that was like something she just couldn't take anymore. And so I have learned just that experience, and then that little experience made me dig deeper. I think that's something palmistry could revisit, and anyone that has the brachydactyly type D thumb should not be included in the murderous thumb, because it's a clubbed thumb. It's just not the same. That's just my little 2 cents there. I think it has some similarities, but it's isolated to the thumb and not the rest of the fingers. So, and granted, the thumb stands on alone, you know, but yeah, I think that being sensitive to what someone else might be sensitive is a good thing, you know. And another reason, again, why I wanted to share this with you, so you can learn about yourself compared to somebody else telling you about yourself. You decide for yourself if these things are accurate or not. And again, it's because you are on the journey to knowing yourself. And nobody can tell you about yourself. Only you, just you. So, because, you know, I do a lot of rambling. ADHD has me, what? Squirrel. So after this is all up, are part of chirognomy, I think it's going to kind of lead us into it. So the more that we know about the mounts, the more that we will understand the lines that are on the mounts. So yeah, join me next time. Again, it'll be this coming Sunday. Unless something does come up, I will I'll maybe put it in my story or something, so you know I won't be live. But this is what I'm committing to, is every Sunday I will go live between the hours of 12 and 2. So like if you don't see me live at noon, it means something came up, but I'm still going live between those hours. So if I'm not live by 2, I'm not going live. But I'm going to try and keep that, let you know if I'm doing that or not. So to be looking for that. And I really appreciate everyone that has been here, commented, just showed up, liked the live, all of that. It's been an amazing class today, and I will see you all hopefully next Sunday. And I'm going to say goodbye. Okay, so here I am showing you the 4 typical, or the 4 different types of fingertips that you will find. 1 shows the pointed fingertip, and again, these are your very psychic individuals. 2 is the spatulate, you're very dynamic, full of energy. 3 is the conic, very easy to get along with, easygoing. 4 is square, which is your practical, hardworking, down-to-earth individual. Now let's take a look at what a clubbed finger looks like. So here shows the difference between a normal finger and a clubbed finger. Notice that the clubbed finger looks bulbous, or bulbous. I'm not sure if I'm ever saying that right. And then the flat pad. And here you see what actual clubbing of the fingers and the thumb looks like. And the biggest thing to note here is that clubbed fingers are rare to find somebody just born with them. They are almost always a symptom of some other underlying health condition, which is why I always ask my clients before I notice, actually a better word is comment on, because yes, I've noticed it, is Do they have a health condition or a symptom that might be causing something that I might be seeing in the hand? It's anywhere from looking at clubbed fingers, clubbed thumb, to also crooked fingers, like I ask about arthritis. So all of those are pertinent to a reading. But if it is idiopathic, which means, that there's no cause, that the digital clubbing was something congenital, something they were born with, or hereditary, I will tell you what palmistry says about clubbing. Like I said, the following is only true if it is idiopathic. So people with clubbed thumbs usually have a very long fuse. They rarely lose their tempers, but when they do, anger quickly turns to rage and fury. They could possibly clear a room instantly, as people around them might want to run to safety. But in most cases, clubbing is a symptom of another condition, and it can be idiopathic or hereditary. But in most cases, clubbing indicates problems with your heart, lungs, or digestive system. So what I have learned in my journey, and something that I did in the beginning anyway, because they teach you that through Udemy, the course that I took, was that you always have to ask if there is an underlying condition, because you can see crooked fingers. Like I've broke my fingers working in the factory. So, and you see that, you will see that. And clubbed thumbs is rare. Clubbed fingers are rare, as we just learned. So, and it's important for you to know that also, because in palmistry, what is reflected in your hands is because of your mind. If it's a condition of something, then it is a symptom, and it's not the same as something that your mind is manifesting in your hands. So there you go. There you have it. And I am so grateful for you being here today. And I hope that you learned something with me. And I will see you hopefully next Sunday with some new stuff. And I hope everybody has a blessed day.